Hello everyone. It's overwhelming to be here. I watch Blender conference talks for many years now, and they have taught me a lot, have a lot of influence over me. And sadly, I couldn't spend as much time as I wanted to in this presentation, but if you have any questions at the end and even in the middle, if you're there. But Blender conference talks, they came a bit later in my Blender journey, because it all started with this guy. I believe you all know who he is, who that is. And yeah, I'm showing a picture where he's young, because I want to relate. Yeah, it comes with a lot of pressure to look at him at his job. Usually, when somebody reaches me out and says that they want to learn Blender, I show them some of his work and 1-minute tutorials, which really make me I look at the tutorials, and even the old ones nowadays, besides his Patreon and all of that, and feel like everything is possible. Like you look at it and anything can be made. And being a young Ian Hubert is, or even looking at him, it's something that is much more relatable than like talking to the Pope or whatever he's doing nowadays. But so we're talking about small beginnings here, just because, yeah, relatable. That's what Blender is, right? It's accessible, and everyone can use it with their own will to reach anything they want. And I was working a regular job, and influenced by 1-minute tutorials and things like that. A friend of mine showed me his materials. I decided to walk around the streets. I finished work early, and I decided to take some pictures to use as textures. And then I walked around São Paulo. I'm from Brazil, by the way. My name is Gregorio. And I took these pictures. And I was like, yeah, I don't know how I'm going to use them, but I'm going to do something with it. And then with my 2011 MacBook, which was, I think, in 2019, so it was already very old at the time, I did this. And I felt like I was on top of the world. Yeah. I kept showing it to everybody. Like I probably spent more time showing it to people than working on more things. And I said, I did this. It's 3D. Can you see it? Like, if you need somebody that does 3D, I'm your guy, you know. Yeah, we have that feeling, which was exactly what I was going for, right? And I have this tendency of keep working on different things and doing different projects that are not really related with one another. So I just end up not going too deep into anything. Possibly always in the search of feeling like I now might be ready to talk to the Pope or something like that, because I don't know, I cannot keep doing the same thing for a long time and just do many different challenges, like things that are not related to each other. And after a few months of studying Blender, I got my first paid job, and I landed my first client. And I have the privilege of hearing somebody say to me, choose any assets you want from the internet, I'll buy it, and then you do what I want you to do. And it's the first video from this tiny collection of works that do not really have a high level of execution, but they have a high value to the people that were requesting the job. As you can see, a lot of stuff that's it's very different from one from the other. And this is mainly what I am and will be talking about today, about how you can apply Blender to a specific situation and generate a lot of value for what is needed, not to become Ian Hubert. Oh, this was projected in a famous cathedral in Bahia, in São Paulo, in Salvador. Projection mapping festival, and just some cliche logo reveal of my studios. Yeah, and oh shit. So, about using Blender to do anything, I was sleeping one night, and I'm a bit ashamed, but I decided to share it. I had a dream about Patrick from SpongeBob. He was in a dark room, and he was playing the drums, and it was. I have a background in audio engineering and music production, so I decided to. I ended up spending more time working on the music than working on the video, but Blender allowed me to do that. Thank you. Thank you, Eyeball in Sketchfab for the Patrick model. And yeah, I've been watching a lot of things. I follow all of the Blender Studio stuff. It just fills my heart with joy to see people doing amazing things with Blender. And never something that I would do or that what I am doing, so that's why it's so special to me to share with you what I have been doing. I'll get there, but yeah, the Blender Studio pipeline has always filled me with thrills because it looks so complicated and they're so efficient and they achieve so much in so little time. And yeah, I have a few more examples about pipeline talks that keep getting in my head. I watch a lot of tutorials and a lot of talks, but I don't take notes and I don't follow along. I just watch it. I remember being in. It was a specific evening where I went to bed and was going through some things in my life, was very thoughtful, and instead of watching Netflix, I turned on a master class by Gleb Alexandrov on how to do photogrammetry from beginning to end, everything open source. And I fell asleep in the clouds. And I learned how to do photogrammetry at the time, and it was amazing. And yeah, those talks influenced me like that with Pipeline. I don't know why I'm so drawn to them, but yeah, this guy made thousands of couches, and he can do it all by himself. This guy is doing millions of dollars. What? every variation of door, and he clicks a button and he adds one material, but he has thousands of variations of handles and door shapes, and then he adds one single material, presses a button, and then he has thousands and thousands more doors. And that's just so powerful. Like he can use Blender to generate all of that value for him. And yeah, these car models that play on the panel and stuff like that. Like, it's really useful to keep looking what people can do. And when I need to do something, some tutorial rings in my mind. Some talk that I've watched comes to me and it makes me say, yeah, I can do that for a client or something like this, because I know somebody has done it, somebody has gone a similar path. And yeah, amazing talk from last year from these guys that won the Oscar. And once a guy from the United States reached me out and said, I need to render like 300-400 scenes for a pilot episode of a animated series. And I was like, oh, yeah. Well, we started to talk, and then I realized he had already animated and shaded, and everything was done. It was a 3D series made it in Blender. I signed an NDA. I don't know if it got released or not. But the only thing that I had to do was render. I was like, this is amazing. Like, I was genuinely interested in the challenge of how can I do this efficiently. I'm not gonna like open the scene in my laptop and click render and wait it out. Like, of course, I needed something. And then this guy, which I hope to meet somewhere these days, he has like every year he's talking about Flamenco in the Blender conference and has a lot of documentation and stuff. Flamenco is an amazing render manager, which you can, it's so easy to integrate into Blender. Like this, like Kitsu, like I cannot do that easily. It takes time, it takes effort to implement like a project manager and all of that. But Flamenco is like you download it, you bring it into Blender, and now you have something that takes care of everything. Like I used one desktop computer on the gig I'm talking about, and I was very busy at the time working on something else, and I called a friend of mine, the one that showed me Ian Hubert in the beginning. He was also doing other things with his life. He was, hey, do you remember Blender? I need you to do something in Blender for me. And then he sat on the computer for like one day, and he basically a few hours in the computer were enough for the computer work by itself for days and days until all of the scenes were rendered, because there was a queue. Because all of and if the render crashes, it starts over again. It's beautiful. Yeah, and then Penguin Content reached out to me, and they were looking for someone. And in case you don't know them, they're the Brazilian animation studio responsible for Fistronaut. And Earth to Luna. Earth to Luna is present in more than 100 countries. And yeah, they're going to the 14th season, which is a lot for an animated show for kids in Brazil, and I think anywhere, really, to make it work for so long, right? It's a very good show. And this is the project they brought to me to talk about. It's a kids feature film. It has around 800 scenes. It lasts for about 80 minutes. and you cannot really tell from this poster, but the background images are hand-drawn and digitally, but by hand. And the characters are cut-out animation, just like this. And they wanted to bring the characters closer to the background style, because the cutout is like a flat shading and all of that. And since I was referred to them by a trusted person, they were very generous with me and gave me access to a lot of production files and all of that. And I started looking at everything that they were doing. The production was happening for like a few years already before I started talking to them, before they started talking to me. And the animation pipeline was already set, like they were more than halfway done through the animation process. And they were starting character shading, doing some shadows and highlights on the characters themselves, and also drop shadows, like adding those details to the movie. And the series have like a more the style is more simple, so they did not have as much experience with those extra steps to make it look different. And neither did I, but we'll get there. And then I studying what they were doing, I started to assemble like a plan and what I could contribute to the project. And none of the material I'll show today is final. The movie has not yet premiered. But yeah, well, I had the goal to contribute, but it has to be efficient. So we developed custom tools, and I had help for that since I'm not a developer, but everything is more accessible than I first thought it was, just by what I've seen people do in conference talks and the complicated things that were happening that I just looked from a distance. Yeah, I'll show what I could do with a budget and on a tight scheduling. Yeah, so the first and most important reference, I think, most interesting one that I found was Claws, because it's really impressive how can they achieve that with 2D characters. It's a very detailed work. And they have their own tools, like there's automatic tracking, and then I looked at that mask with the feather, and I was like, oh, I think you can go in a tab in Blender that does that, and I tried to get in touch with them, with Sergio Pablo Animation Studio and Le Film du Poisson Rouge, but I wrote to them in English, nobody answered. I wrote in French, and they were like, we don't sell, we don't rent it, have a nice week. Well, okay, not really open to talking. Then I found this guy with Swiffle, which is an amazing tool that allows you to import things from Toon Boom, which is a cutout and 2D animation software, with some kind of Flash format straight into Blender. And wow, I was looking at it because Penguin Content uses Toon Boom, and I could do some automatic tracking with that. Maybe got in touch with him, say, hey, I really need your help because I couldn't get it to work. He answered me saying, let me help you, I would love to do that. But quickly, I realized that that would be too complicated to import all of the vectors and all of that. I didn't know where to start, but I also did some experiments with like one of Penguin Content's animators helped me write a script so I could distribute trackers and markers in the character to maybe do some compositing weird things to shade the character without having to reanimate everything. And has anyone here ever heard about Toon Boom? Yeah, okay. Not everyone. And I didn't know Toon Boom at the time, and I think I still don't. I don't get it, but I was able to do that in a couple of days. It's not running in real time, but it's basically what you saw on Klaus production, but for free, right? And in your home, like anyone can do that. It's open source. I just put some pieces together. There's not anything special happening there. And but I think it would make sense in a different pipeline because I don't know, that this is what I presented to them, saying like, I can offer you this. This is what I think your project would benefit from, that I can bring with the help of Blender. And I kept doing tests all by myself, all by hand, without automations, without any specific tools. Like the fact that somebody did that tracking distribution script and they sent the script to me made me realize, oh, I can do some things to help them send me the material I need to work. So I proposed to make some Toon Boom export tool. And yeah, I had ideas about what I could automate in what I was doing by hand. So I proposed those things. And yeah, Klaus, which had that amazing visual, had a $40 million budget, and this IMDb comment got old pretty quickly because it's surprisingly inexpensive for animated film. It's $4 million, right? And in our case, the whole movie, I think they went a little bit above that, but it was just $1 million. And I came years into production and with my own studio, so I didn't even see nothing from that money. Okay, nothing of course, but it's not in that scale. So things got cut, right? This is what they were interested in and what I could offer at the reality of the project. And this is basically what was drawn and constructed, right? So you have Toon Boom in the upper left with the 2D animation, and that had to go to a cloud, right? A server that they could access easily. But I also wanted it to go to a local server of mine. And then it goes to Blender and it goes back to the cloud. And this is the system that I had for that we built. Basically, we have a computer that has a lot of storage, fast storage, the pink one, and it also runs the Flamenco manager. So it's a host in different ways that keeps all of the files and runs Flamenco mainly, because the other scripts got run locally. And the other computers could access the folders from this computer just as if they were inside of every computer, right? Shared storage. And I asked them to bring the computers they were going to use to export the animation data from Toon Boom into my studio. So I would have it locally and I would figure something out to send it to them, because I would be using it immediately. They would need it for another step. So I figured I would benefit more from this instant access, and it all worked out. in that sense. And then we had internet access that would send things to the cloud and also allowed for remote access to the animators that worked for Penguin, and also my people that some of them mostly worked remotely. So here's the Toonboom interface, and you can see above this bar with a lot of icons. They were all made inside of Blender. And this is version 3, actually, because I like to keep changing this design. And they each had their purpose. All of them actually had one purpose, but all of them sent the files to different places. So this comp manager node that you see is basically an end of a string that puts a lot of things together, and you want to send that to some place. So it might be a character, it might be an object, it might be a full scene preview. And then you would click a button like this button that's highlighted above. And that would create 2 output nodes, 2 write nodes that had their paths determined by the name of the file. So the script would read what was written in there and set the desired file formats for each step of the process and send them to the exact folders where they were needed. So no manual file naming and setting the directory, right? And while doing some research to make that happen, I found some mistake in their documentation. I checked 2 days ago, and they haven't fixed it yet. It's really trivial, but we have that spirit of like contributing, right? We see something wrong and we cannot edit, so we send an email out and say, hey, this is an easy fix. And yeah, they wouldn't answer it. But I had a more serious thing to talk about with them, which was this alpha buttoning here that I could not make. So it got checked with the code. So alpha was disabled. I was asking the people to manually check the alpha, and I wanted to get that done with. I wrote a complete email to them, including the license key to the software, because I predicted that they were going to be demanding with that. And I think that was a form that I fulfilled, and I had to select a category of the contact, which I did put as a support request. And funny enough, I got an answer from the sales team saying that in order for the request to be transferred to the support team, I had to share the license key. And I said, okay, I already shared the license key, but here it is again. Can you help me out? Then I got an answer from the support team. Yes, nice, this is progress. Osvaldo is here to assist me. He cannot help me because he needs a reference to my support plan. What is a reference to support plan? And yeah, this is just to show you guys how different is. There is another world. There's people like living in a different reality that goes through emails like this every day. What is this? I had to talk to the production who hired the software and all of that, so they could just copy and paste my message to somebody that was actually going to answer, and then they gave me the solution. I was just using a wrong attribute, but I was using Toonboom's console to request a list of attributes, and the attribute that was coming out was wrong. And the guy says in the email, like, it doesn't work because it's wrong. I don't know where you got it from. Like, the software gave it to me. But he sent me something that's like a key, like a secret, no documentation, no nothing, but okay, this is what works. And then all of this was about this button. Like it's too much. And yeah, nice to feel the contrast from this to our universe where, yeah, this kind of things is. I still don't know why Toonbone is used, to be honest. I've seen some guys do cutout animation in Blender, this project called Blown Apart, which it's really, really nice, and they do it all with open source tools. And yeah, it also seems quicker to animate everything. Everything's better, and you have good documentation, you have a community. But okay, let's come back to the project because I think I needed to blow that steam off. This is the file structure that we organized. Very simple. We have a folder for the effects. Inside that folder, we have a sequence folder with sequence 1, 2, 3. I think it has 93 sequences. And inside of each sequence, we have the scenes. And inside each scene, we just distributed the different steps that took place in our production. And but only inside the effects folder, because that was basically what we used to work. There's also the Toonbone files folder, had the same structure, but inside of them, the Penguin animators used it to export and render the Toonbone files. And another folder for Flamenco. That was all that was relevant inside the shared folder structure. So yeah, we went through the export tool. And next thing they were interested in and we developed were the drop shadows. So here we have a basic illustration showing what they were all about. We had to import the characters to serve as casters. We had to create a catcher, and we used a holdout, which was a duplicate from the characters, so that you wouldn't get any shadows on top of the characters themselves to reduce some compositing steps. And we also had to import a background image into the camera, so you would have a nice preview of what was happening in the scene. That's basically what the solution I made to make so that they would stop animating by hand the drop shadows and have a system that was more effective and that you could manipulate with more precision, have better results, and take much less time. This is the same thing, but applied to a scene. And yeah, the character would be disabled from the camera view, so it wouldn't interfere visually. You will only see the shadow catcher, which catches only the shadow, right, on top of the background that was being displayed from the camera, but the output would be only a piece of shadow. And yeah, and this was the holdout setup. You don't want it to cast any shadow, but it helps keeping that from happening, right? So you can see exactly what's going on. We have a duplicate of the character in front of the camera as a holdout. And yeah, this is the whole setup from a simple scene like this. And from the start, the process looked like this. You set the sequence name, the scene number. This could be automated, but we didn't do all that could be done. Just adjust the light position. That's it. the shadow gets animated along with the character plate, and then you hit submit to Flamenco. And it will automatically set the output by using 2 forward slashes, as Flamenco does. It just puts on where the blend file is. And Flamenco looks like this, so you would get a list of what was going on. And this is a compositing scene, so we are getting a preview, but in the shadows, since we used EXR, we got no preview, but that didn't bother us. And the good thing is that you could set, you can set tags to anything you'd like, and it was useful for us to set CPU and GPU tags because we are doing compositing with the CPU and shadow rendering with GPU. So we could enable those settings in each of the computers that had more powerful hardware for each of the tasks, so we could render efficiently, and we had no single overnight render, even with a very highly productive environment that didn't finish the next day. So rendering was never an issue, sometimes doing dozens of scenes in a single day. But we had weird issues all around. The main thing about developing those tools, which for us, how it happened to us, is just opening the window panel in Blender and doing what you must do so you can get an immediate reference, a code reference of what are the attributes you are fiddling with and how you can execute those commands with lines of code. So you start structuring the repetitive parts of your process and what you want to automate over that. So we had to create some kind of versioning system because everything would break if you tried to create the same scene you had already created. And yeah, it's hard to tell, but this is a complete fail because it was a simple thing that got changed just to make sure nothing would go wrong, and then all of a sudden, every scene that we finished got finished rendering immediately, and the output was just black images because you have the compositor turned on, but the nodes got deleted. So what happens then? We spent a week working on things without knowing exactly what the result was. And then after we figured out this was the problem, we turned off use nodes and just re-rendered from Flamenco without having to reopen anything. And yeah, you keep stumbling into different challenges. Like this scene had, where are the shadows? What is this black line? And then to eventually realize that you need to increase the amount of light bounces to work with a certain amount of layers that all of them had alpha channels. So we inserted that into the code, and the code keeps growing and being each time more safe and steady and fail-proof. Right, so now every scene has at least 40 max bounces for the lighting, so this never happened again. And this is that same scene being created. Very forgiving process. One important thing is that made our lives much easier was to make so that the origin of the character is in the camera, so it comes aligned with the camera, and you just change the scale. and the character will keep aligned, so you just have to match where the foot is standing to where the actual 3D ground is. Did I just pause it? No. And yeah, this is a more complicated scene because the simple scenes are so simple. In 1 minute you can finish them, but sometimes you come across different things and have to be a bit more creative with the solutions. So here we have 3 lights and 3 shadow catchers for 1 character only. And we used light linking for that and shadow linking, which is something that I saw come out in one version of Blender and never used. So when I needed it, I knew it was there and learned how to use it. Basically, you can have independent lights, in case you don't know, so because I never used that before. And I wanted to animate those lights and to transition between different grounds. So yeah, the solution that I found was to keep the grounds very close to each other, but they cannot be at the exact same level, otherwise there will be some alpha artifacts. And then I animated the alpha in the principled BSDF. So this is what was happening. The light, the sunlight is being animated, and then the alpha gets turned down, and then it switches to the other light, and you can see the effect. This happened to 2 characters in the same scene, so a simple and unusual for our gig compositor setup. And this is the final shadow result, which is very subtle, but it makes a lot of difference. And yeah, mainly scale animation, no location nor rotation to keep things aligned and smooth. So you can see I'm matching the foot with the shadow catcher. And if I move, it gets misaligned in a way that for the next few frames, I will be in trouble and have to do everything manually. We had to pay attention and make sure that there were no scenes being animated on tools where the shadows weren't on tools as well, so a lot of stepped interpolation. And this is the final result of the scene. Like, the amount of time that it would take to make that by hand is a lot. So even though the final results are not something out of this world, they had a lot of value where they were applied. And at the end, we just joined everything together to have an internal preview so we can review our own work. And we made use of this step to distribute all of the files that we wanted everywhere. So automatically, this was all done but just by inserting the scene number. And then it imported everything and created output nodes that that distributed it to the specific places, like the shadows were going to the client server, the final result was going to us, so we could reveal it. We were sending different layers to them, also the character layers with a filter on top of it. I didn't talk about it because it's not very related to Blender. But yeah, this is the filter, and this is the scene before our work, and this is after, before and after. And we did that in 800 scenes in just a few months with 3 people. So that's what this is all about, right? And yeah, this is what goes to, this is what distributes everything. in this file structure. Basically, that's all that went through. We distribute the layers locally. We run the codes to get the layers and build our shadows. We render the shadows out. The compositing tools gathers the layers that weren't fiddled with, and the ones that we created. It combines everything together, sends it to the client, and generates a preview. This is the final scene. And this is our productivity tracker, because we had to know what was going on. It's not pretty, but it worked out wonderfully for us. And eventually we also did some graphs to keep track of how many scenes we were doing each day. And at some point, you can see here, oh, I cannot read that, 21st of, it's like a, it's 561 scenes done. Okay, it's 463 scenes of throughput in 1 month. So basically we redid a step of the movie, of half of the movie in a month. And it's a level of productivity that was unknown to our clients, so we also kept waiting a lot for new scenes to come in and all of that. We were much more productive than what the environment allowed us, so that became an issue because we had to sit and wait for more animation to be ready and for material to come through. Yeah, this is some examples. A slide that I didn't delete, that, like, this is what was used to fetch data inside the folders, right? So you just put the shared storage name, and then you insert some variables that will be determined by what you type, and when you click create a scene, it will go after everything and assemble the scene the way that was needed. Like, doing it manually doesn't make any sense. That's it. I hope you enjoyed it. I love Blender. I love making it, using it to make my life easier and to make other people's lives easier, and to express myself. Feel free to ask questions, to write me, to reach me out in whatever way you'd like. Thank you. I don't think there's anything that, there's a secret. I love that about our community, that some people don't like to share, but there's no secrets. Anything that you'd like to know, I'll be happy to share, if that's the case. Any questions? Would anyone like to add anything? Is that a raised hand?
Yeah, I did similar things with Spring Boot when I was in university. I was just wondering if you posted your tool, the export tool anywhere.
Okay, so you did similar things with Toon Boom when you were at... I'm sorry?
I also hate the Toon Boom support team.
Okay, you also hate Toon Boom support. Yeah, they're terrible. You're asking if I posted the tool. I did not, because it is specifically made for like local paths that I have and all of that, and I don't really have the know-how on how to adapt that to be used by anyone. So if you know how to do that, or anyone knows how to do that and would like to help, I can certainly publish it. Thank you, everyone.